What's up, traders? It is Adam Harris, and thank you for joining me again this week. I'm going to be doing my market analysis, looking at kind of where the opportunities are lying in the coming week, in the next five trading days at least. First of all, I'm recording this on Saturday. I'm going away, so I'll be traveling tomorrow, so I'm doing it on Saturday. But this is valid from Monday until Friday, so just having a look at this. I'll start off with the high impact stuff. So really, because we've now passed non-farm payroll, most of the attention is really going to be focused on either potentially what is going on with regards to the stability out of China, if that's an issue or not, and really otherwise perhaps really just focusing on the US numbers, but nothing that's scheduled, at least, that I would expect to be particularly volatile or unusually volatile above average. Some of the charts are looking really good, so I think let's go across to those. Looking at the volatility, the market volatility, and looking at this on the VIX, again, I just kind of have to mention we've come back down sort of between 20 and 15. You can see these attempts to go up, rejections getting pushed back down, although we are producing a series of high lows, which implies that it's attempting that there might be a shift. It's not ideal. I would really like for us to be in these kind of areas, 25 and above, on a more regular basis, and then we would start to see some really good opportunities. So it is there, but it keeps popping back down. And the idea here is that essentially this just means that there aren't necessarily going to be too many strong trends, or the trends, especially, let's say, with regards to currencies or anything, might be short-lived. So market moves one way for a couple of days and then ends up coming back. So anyway, just commenting on that a little bit about, we'll see how that goes. Now, moving on to the dollar index. So dollar is now encountering some solid resistance there. Let's call it 94.50. Halfway en route to 95. Overall, the trend looks fine here. This last week, not necessarily having closed, a bit of an indecision candle, might just simply be pausing before it carries on. Monthly candle looking nice and strong so far, at least last month's candle. So, there has been some resistance here in the past, but I would like to see this continue to push on and hit 95. So what could happen this week if we fail to break these lows? In other words, we produce a series of high highs, it might be building up to a breakout, which then heads up towards 95. Alternatively, if we do break this, then that simply just means that the level that we're encountering, we're going to come back down into this area. So that combined with kind of lower volatility simply means that this might actually be the case. But my goal here, at least, or plan A, is to see this breakout to the upside and continue up to 95. So I'll be looking for clues for a stronger dollar. Looking here at euro dollar on the daily, what I would mention is that this is pumping the brakes. Okay, that's quite interesting. This is now looking as though it very much wants to head up at least to 1.16, perhaps higher if it breaks these lows. The reason being, strong move down, a couple of bullish candles, another move down, just breaks these lows, and then immediately sort of starts to show a bit more buyers coming in. I would say, the trend is kind of bearish on the MACD. It's relatively flat. Possibly even a little bit bullish divergence on the RSI, not offering too many clues there. So there's a real mixture going on right here, and that actually also means there might be a bit of volatility this week. So a little bit of extra caution. For me, first prize would be to see perhaps do a little bit of a bounce off this level, come back up into test these old highs. So that would be good for shorting opportunities. In other words, price breaks out of the range, ends up coming back in to test the bottom of that range, and then provide shorting opportunities as it continues down. We have broken these lows here, and that is quite nice. Ultimately, in the long run, I'd like just to see us stay, get out of these ranges that we've been in for several years and start to move in a significant direction. But here it's looking as though initially we might see a bit of a move up, or at least at some point in the next week, a bit of a move up before continuing down. If we break this, then of course we're potentially returning back in towards that range. So looking at sterling, let's just go and have a look at this. Solid rejection of those lows, couple of days down, 2-3 days back up, and we spent the last few days going largely sideways. That monthly looking as though it's perhaps come down and tested that. So there is a possibility here that sterling is going to be looking a little bit more bullish, but it's got to really get past these previous lows, got to get back up above that. So that means I have to see it hold above where it is now and start to break above these highs. And if we do get that stronger US dollar, that's not going to happen. Aussie dollar, US dollar, also now having broken these highs, there's no clear trend. So let me rephrase that. There is no trend on Australian dollar, US dollar. Actually, now it's looking potentially like it might head up, but it's got a bunch of resistance in this area here. So this is not top of my list in terms of trading opportunities. I'll be very cautious there. Sterling has got a bit of strength to it. So if we are going to see moves up to the highs, then I'm probably going to lean towards sterling more than anything else. Kiwi dollar, US dollar, same thing again. It is still stuck within this range, although it's managed to peak its kind of nose out. It goes back into this, and you can see here on the monthly, it's just a hot mess, basically coming into this level of previous resistance, testing it as support, showing that possibility of it ultimately, if it just keeps looking weaker and weaker, it's going to break through that. But this is a mess as well, so I'd be avoiding Aussie dollar, US dollar. Let's have a look at dollar yen. So dollar yen, you know, the one that I always say is junk, it's not worth looking at. It's looking really good at this point in time. Has started overall, it's still last on my list for opportunities, but I have to say right now, at least it's showing some commitment and a solid close up towards the highs above these old highs here, hinting basically here, looking at dollar strength to the upside and a continuation at least up to the top there. It's above 111.70, which is the key level I've got you. Next level up is closer towards 113, and so it does very much look like it's going to continue to the upside there. Dollar Swissy wobbling a little bit, did come back down, do a move up, back down, and now it's struggling with this area. So similar to euro dollar, the inversely correlated, not 100%, but a good 80% inversely correlated. It looks as though it has no clear direction at this point. So I'm going to really be more concerned with shorts once we break these lows, or looking bullish if we can get back up into that trend from where we are here, actually continue to produce high lows. So there's no clear direction at this point in time, so I have to wait for individual candles to start breaking these previous highs up here to remain bullish, or if it starts to break these lows, I start to become bearish, and until then, don't touch. Dollar CAD. Nice moves to the downside. In fact, CAD pairs are very much on my watch list. We've got really kind of, we could argue that as a potential change in trends. We've got this sort of head and shoulders pattern happening here. You can see here on the monthly prices come up, rejection, rejection, rejection. We've now got a swing high and a bearish candle at the moment, breaking through this key level. So I like this. I think any pullbacks into these areas on lower timeframes and continuations down towards 1.2050, that is pretty much on the cards for me. Okay, moving on to the crosses, or the pairs of interest to me as well. Some of the yen pairs are actually looking particularly bullish. Over the last week, we've had some of them wishy-washy, but they're actually starting to look more and more bullish. Here, for example, euro yen, it's a bit of a danger at this point. Once we break free of this range over here, we should get some moves to the upside there. It's starting to look like that, and that would then be a continuation of this trend to the upside here as well. Similar to dollar CAD, just highlighting that there's been a longer term trend. We pull back, potential continuation to the downside. Euro yen showing some potential continuation to the upside. Let's have a look at pound yen, for example, as well. Same thing. Look at that. Really nice continuation to the upside. So that means there's the strong possibility of continuing up towards these old highs. Okay, so the yen crosses, CAD crosses are very attractive to me at the moment. CAD yen, look at that really nice solid breakout of this level, and heading up towards these old highs, and that really strong continuation of this going up towards that. So at some point I do expect some pullbacks, possibly even back down into these lows, but that may not all happen next week. Swissy yen, same thing. It's starting to break free of this range. Very nice bullish candle the last couple of weeks, and then a breakout to the upside. This little band of resistance here starting to push through that, and a continuation of the trend to the upside. So again, yen crosses offering, to me, not necessarily all of them, but some of them at least, offering some higher probabilities, you know, in air quotes, safer trades to the upside. Looking then at the CAD crosses, boom, strong moves down over the last week to the downside. These are looking good. Some of them are coming or approaching key levels, and therefore there might be a bit of a bounce from that, but they really are on my watch list for trades to the downside. You know, ideally getting pullbacks on that. Looking at this pound CAD pullback, really nice continuation to the downside. Very messy over here, but generally speaking, aside from these levels here, the CAD crosses are looking nice and bearish. Okay, Aussie CAD as well, moving to the downside. So top of my list for this coming week for currency trading opportunities is going to be the CAD crosses to the downside, not necessarily all of them, the ones I like the most, and yen crosses to the upside. And then just watching to see what happens with the dollar at this point in time, which way it decides to go. Just bring up Aussie Kiwi here. Really nice solid bounce off these lows here, providing some opportunities, broken through this level. If it does continue up, it's got a bit of a way to go, and so therefore any kind of pullbacks and continuations up to 106 and 106.4 might provide some good buying opportunities there. All right, so moving on to precious metals, having a look at gold. Still a mess overall, still within this range. You can see an attempt to go higher, got knocked back yesterday by the close of day, so boosted up in the late afternoon, at least after NFP. And then non-farm, and then knocked all the way back down. So all that really does is show that there's just no clear winner here. There's sellers up here and buyers below that. It's not in control. If anything, look at that monthly, it looks weaker and weaker and weaker. It looks like it wants to head down. So for me, staying away from that, unless we break back up above these highs and towards 1.8, then I'm nice and bullish. Then I'm looking for price to continue up. And so that's just, that's largely my concern. It has to go above these levels for me to start to become a little bit more bullish on it. If it starts to break through these, I'm going to start to become more bearish on it. Just waiting for it to kind of decide what it wants to do. Looking at silver here, so we've got some potential, again, attempts to break through these levels, failing to do that. There's just no clear direction. For me, a lot of this is screaming caution, and may simply just be a bit of a retracement or consolidation before heading lower. So just, just exercising some caution on those. I want to just have a look at some of the other metals quickly. So I'm just going to jump across. I've had some people inquire about that. So palladium, for example, big strong correction. This longer term uptrend is broken now. So that's done. So now we've got price coming down to test these levels. And so the question now is what's going to happen? Are we going to get a longer term downtrend? Is price going to be able to recover? Are we within a range here? Certainly for the shorter term, it's doing a bit of a move back up to the upside here, back into these resistance areas. And you can see here a bit of accumulation kind of coming in, starting to do a bit of a move to the upside. So a short term move for me for palladium to the upside before we then have to see if it's going to resume the longer term downtrend. Platinum doing something similar now, officially or technically in an uptrend here, starting to break these highs, but I want to see if it can continue to the upside. Long move down, strong bullish candle, but you can see that response to these key levels. We'll have to see if it can break above that. Interesting, they've been moving down a lot faster. And copper as well. So copper obviously having had a bumper year going through 2020 and 2021. Nobody really paying attention to it. It was practically printing really good trades. And that includes myself as well. Really only started to really pay attention to it sort of towards the end here. So yeah, you can see it's attempting to stay above these levels, getting weaker and weaker and weaker. We've got lower highs coming in. This also looking though potentially is if it doesn't manage to break these highs, we're going to see it obviously break through here and start to head down low. Interesting. So just collectively looking at all the metals. Looking at all the metals, they are not necessarily looking that strong, very much undecided. So a lot of them are basically saying either trade with huge caution, trade only the ones with the clearest trends, or don't touch us at all, as opposed to this is easy money, there's a fixed direction for all of us. Moving on to crude oils. Okay, so crude oils still looking relatively bullish. Monthly price action really nice and healthy. Weekly price action nice and healthy. I've got another level up here at 85, 83. This is for West Texas. And so far that all looking good. We had a solid, beautiful, this is a very big candle. It's not ideal in terms of trading size, but a really solid reaction off that level, a break and a retest and a continuation. So for the most part, I'm expecting this to continue to the upside. We'll see how that goes. There's no real signs of any weakness or any potential failure, so would expect that to continue. Brent crude coming up against a level here, so that's in its immediate future. There's a little bit of exhaustion there. Overall, again, that weekly looks good. The monthly looks good. We've broken above these old highs. So I'll be looking to see if we can get past these levels. But so far, my expectation is to see that continue on. And so that, in terms of commodities, oil's sitting well ahead of precious metals. All right, moving on to the global indices, starting off with the Dow. So let's look at the weekly candle. That weekly candle is more bullish than bearish. Okay, it's got a nice little tail underneath it, wick shadow, whichever you prefer to call it. A little bit of a wick above it, but you can see it failed to close. In fact, what it did, and I think this is significant, is close kind of below, closed a little bit lower here, certainly lower than the previous low. So although it did manage to recover, it sort of closed a little bit lower and has not been able to break through this resistance. That's really the big problem. That monthly looks good. In isolation, this is actually a bullish kind of a setup. If we can maintain this, we're not even halfway through the month. We will be. My birthday is coming up on the 14th, so we'll see how that goes. That's almost the midpoint of the month. We'll see where we are then. This is looking almost a bit of a bullish setup, but this could then be perhaps sufficient for, if we can close something looking like this at the end of the month and then break the high, this is a continuation to the upside. But for now, the danger is it's really here. I need this to break above to continue to the upside. In fact, I really wanted to get past these highs before I would feel that the conditions have eased up a little bit. Right now, it's still in a position where it could perhaps head a little bit lower. Looking at the S&P, apologies for all the fibs. I was just laughing because I highlighted this orange zone, which is 2 fib measurements, and found a little zone here where there's we've got where they overlap, and of course this is where we've encountered resistance. So just noting that, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get rid of these Fibonacci measurements for that exact reason. And so that's the zone I'm looking to see if we get past it. We are in a downtrend. Lots of buyers in this area here, but again, that's also not looking super strong. All right, that was an attempt. Got pushed down, managed to get up and close lower. That is not as strong a signal as one would expect, and that monthly hasn't really connected with the moving averages here. So where am I going with this? Yes, it's still bullish. We're in a downtrend here, so it's not really great for trading to the upside because we're trading against the existing downtrend. But the monthly trend is still intact, and the weekly trend is starting to fail a bit. Although it's getting pushed up, it's really not really managing. There's just not enough. It's not closing enough. Something about this is not yet showing me enough strength that it's consolidating and ready to carry on. Not yet. And the first clue for me will be a nice green candle that closes near the highs in this area. Something that breaks the highs, maybe a swing low and closes near the highs. A small one would be fantastic. I'm not seeing that. So that just means that the danger of the market dropping and heading and stumbling and tripping up and maybe dropping a bit further, to me, is very much on the table. So again here, looking at the Nasdaq break up back into this area and now producing a bearish inside candle. All of that, a bearish inside candle, rejection of those, setting up as a potential shorting opportunity to the downside, and that weekly candle not looking great. Even look at this one, a little bit of exhaustion near there. This is the reason why the market falls, manages to recover, then falls again, and then here again gets pushed down and closes near this. A lot more indecision. The market is not, the bulls are losing control, is a good way to put it. The bulls are losing control. So let's see. So again, the caution for me now becoming even more high risk. And look at this junk over here. So this is a Russell 2000. This is insane. So if you're trading these as a day trader, you would have been kicked in the nuts quite a few times. Look at that monthly consolidation. You know, again, this is not a bad thing. Usually if it can tread water long enough, it'll break out to the upside in this case. But yeah, there's just not enough buyers above this level. So it's almost as though the market has become saturated with buyers and no one's got any spare cash anymore. We'll see how that goes. Okay, I mean, Donald Trump certainly doesn't have any spare cash at the moment, judging by the fact that we're now discovering how much money he owes. Okay, so it's just funny because maybe that's what's happening. Maybe there's just no, people are running out of spare cash. Maybe that's what's gonna trigger a bit of a deeper correction. So just moving on here, looking at the FTSE, also just struggling to get to that top level. It hasn't started to relinquish that yet, but also at the same time is not really able to create that. And all of that really gets at is for day traders and swing traders. Absolutely nothing exists for swing traders at this point in time. Certainly not on the daily. Maybe on the high time frames, but it's just too soon to tell at this time. I'm not seeing the stuff. I really don't like the look of it just yet. We've come down on the DAX, back down, found support, but we're slipping. So it's like we closed to a little bit to the high. Again, that monthly looks great. That is a really nice setup if we can close similarly towards the end of the month. But if we, we're not even halfway through, it could close as a big red candle down here. So again, this is why I'm cautious. We're in a downtrend. We have been slipping when you think about it. We've been going down since mid-August, and so that's not a sign of strength. Usually for these to me are buying opportunities if I'm looking at a longer term buy and hold, but for trading opportunities it's incredibly dangerous and high risk. Looking at Euro stocks, same thing, back down, bit of a bullish close. So there are some, as we go down, more and more buyers will enter because obviously it's at more and more of a discount, and so as we drop down you can see this candle looks a bit more bullish than that. But are there enough to hold it to push it back up is the question. Risk Nikkei. Let's look at the Nikkei here. Big drop down, closing to the lows. This not looking very good at all. That's now a swing high and a double rejection and possibly divergence. Let's have a look at this divergence. Yeah, there's divergence on both. Let's just bring this up. There's some solid divergence there and there's divergence there. Okay, so all of this hinting at weakness, especially if we start to break these lows. ASICS 200, okay, that's interesting to me. See, that's managing to hold, bounce back up, looking nice and bullish. That's a really nice bullish candle, closing near the highs, and it's an inside bullish candle as well. So this could be a potential reversal that's sitting up here, as in it's intending to become a swing low and climb a little bit higher, and that monthly looking good, coming into these old highs, into the moving averages. So far this is the first one I've come to that is actually looking better. It's not a guarantee. Look, if the rest of the markets head down, it's going to be pulled back down if it can't break through these old highs here, but that looks at least a little bit better. And so again, all that really does tell me is if one of the kind of more smaller markets compared to say the US markets is looking relatively like it's had a bit of a correction, but it now looks as though there's some accumulation happening here that we could see a bit of a bounce happening off this. But all that does is tell me to be cautious because we're getting mixed signals from the US markets and the European markets, and then as we head east and let's say Asia, but then we're looking at the Australian markets, we're seeing a bit of bullishness, some mixed signals. Let's have a look at the I want to have a look at my kind of stocks of interest. You can see here again, strong downtrend, pulling back into these lows. I'd be looking for shorting opportunities at this point. Why? Well, because this monthly has started to correct. It is in an area now where it could potentially find its feet, but I think that's going to be lowered now. Perhaps if it doesn't find it where it is right now, we're looking at a bigger move down towards the 300. It's in a downtrend on the weekly, and pullbacks here, solid rejections could be shorting opportunities there. So American Express still looking strong. The monthly has not closed yet, so I'm not going to count my chicken before it hatches. It is attempting to do it, but it's really battling with this level. It's a solid battle. Let's just mark that for what it is. That is our strong area of resistance, and let's see if we can get past that. So no opportunities to get into this until it's up above that, and in fact the risk of it dropping lower is a possibility. ARC Innovation, as you know, I'm always a fan of their stuff, but that's starting to drip and drop and slowly come down here. Again, indecision. All of this being that this move is potentially not necessarily finished. We've got a bearish candle here off the lows here, therefore hinting if we break this, we could see the market head a little bit lower there. So in order for me to feel more confident about it, I need to see it break back up above and break these highs before I start to go long. So there's no buy opportunities for me at this point in time. But then I look at this, Berkshire Hathaway. That's a nice high low, high, like a really nice solid close to the upside there. And this looks bullish, and the monthly has come back into the moving averages. So Berkshire Hathaway is showing signs of a potential shift to the upside. It's really when you break this high, you break those, because that's your level of resistance. But this looks good. That's a really strong bullish green shoot signal. So interesting. BP managing to go up. Of course, a little bit of an energy crisis in the UK. Can't wait until we've got electric everything myself. But yeah, so we've got started break. It's going to encounter some resistance at 30, but that looks very much as though that is where that's going to continue to go. And again, in line with West Texas and Brent crude oils all looking bullish. That supports that market climbing a little bit higher here. Very nice correction down. Coca-Cola into the old highs, producing a bullish monthly candle, and actually here it's a bullish outside candle. Didn't close outside above the high. That's just that means it gets an 8 out of 10 as opposed to 10 out of 10. But this also hinting at an attempt to go high. It's also closed above this level here. So that's going to be, so we're going to see some, I think we're going to see some interesting stuff this week. We're going to see some that are going to attempt to go higher, and some are going to head lower, as opposed to a rising tide lifting all boats. Let's look at ExxonMobil. This will be the same as BP, most likely a move up, but it's going to encounter some strong resistance up here towards 70, 72, all of that looking nice and bullish. Let's see how it responds when it gets to 64, call it 64, right in on these old lows, expecting those to attempt to push higher. General Motors, that is really bullish, very, very nice. That is really bullish, but this is the problem up ahead. So this is the elephant in the room, 62.50 towards that. That's where that's going to run out of steam. Okay, but it looks good, looking nice and strong. JP Morgan, beautiful, really, really nice move, continuing creating fresh highs, winning, absolutely. Excuse me, nice bullet candle here. All of that looks good. I would expect some pullbacks, some potential buying opportunities. So very interesting to me. Some have got some really good bullish strong signals, and some are looking a little bit weak. Morgan Stanley here needs to shed a bit more weight. This needs to come right down back towards 80. We've got that sort of bearish inside candle at the moment. If we break the low of that, I would expect it to drop down. Let's see how it responds around this 80 this week. For me, this is higher risk to go long. It's still within a range, so it's definitely not worth trading. Perhaps worth shorting from the highs if you're more experienced, and waiting for clarity on that. Okay, it's overextended and overvalued. Apple. So this is interesting. Apple's right back down on these previous highs. If it produces a bullish candle here, that could be, so if this closes as a bullish candle, I would consider that a relatively decent correction back into the moving averages, finding support, ready perhaps to continue to the upside. But if we fall right through this, then the picture changes significantly, because we're going to start to see them price it down towards 120. But there's really enough here that it should support that. So let's see how that goes. NVIDIA. It's starting to lose that momentum a bit. The angle of it is starting to shift around. This is potentially now going to make another move up in a lower high or an equal high, and then start to lose weight, and then probably start to head down here. So NVIDIA I'm more cautious on, and if I owned shares in that, I'd be looking at potentially updating my stop loss. So make sure that I'm potentially going to get bumped out if I want to capture profits on that one. Strong resistance up here, market trying to hold where it is, but I think it's more likely we'll see this hit down towards 233 on PayPal. Tesla is just trickling up. I mean, it's not super, but it is. I mean, here on the monthly, it's got a high low, it's got a high, it's in an uptrend. Let's see how it is when it can get back into these levels, which is actually kind of where it is now. So is it going to work at 800 or is it going to struggle a bit more? But overall, yeah, that's okay. I'm not leaning towards this climbing much higher immediately. I'm leaning just like 45, 55, that it's going to have a bit of a deeper correction. But the fact is that it's strong and bullish on the weekly, on the monthly, and that all of those are definitely more bullish than bearish. But there's just something about this wispiness, these little rejections up here, red candles, all of that showing that it's not as strong. If it's closing near the highs, this is a really good bullish candle and it's approaching these old highs. So just a bit of caution for me. Spider testing that support level again. Is it going to fall through and go down towards 180? I think that's a possibility for sure. Vanguard starting to lose that momentum for sure. It's been a really healthy one. It needs to correct down to 350 at the very least. And so at those levels, there's be some strong buys. Okay, so this a little bit cautious because we're now in a downtrend and perhaps it's going to attempt to go higher and then maybe start to hit a little bit low. So very cautious on that. Okay, moving on to the Treasuries. Starting to hit, so there's no more buys of Treasuries at this point in time. Had a bit of a boost last week, closed near that, and now we've closed right down below the lows of that. This is more of a sell signal than a buy signal. Interesting to me. Euro bubble, same thing, almost closing near the lows. So might actually see this hit down towards the bottom of the range. Eurobund, almost certainly down to the bottom of the range. Okay, so Treasuries, no one's buying Treasuries. All right, that's it. So we look at the dollar, not giving a huge amount of clarity, but might continue to strengthen. Oils are looking relatively strong. Precious metals aren't going anywhere. So none of that, and this dollar yen is heading up a little bit higher. Okay, so in terms of safe haven, fear-mongering type of panic behavior, a bit of dollar yen, nothing in gold. Dollar itself strengthening a little bit and Treasuries dropping. So at this point, there are no red flags really going off. For me, across the board red flags would see Treasuries climbing, gold climbing, dollar yen climbing, dollar strengthening. Amongst other things, we're not really seeing that, but it doesn't mean we aren't in a tipping, shifting over towards a tipping point. Okay, cryptos. Cryptos looking nice and bullish, really good. Followed through from last week. It's nice to see Bitcoin breaking up above these levels. Its next challenge is basically 60,000. So let's see if we can continue up. Any pullbacks looking for buying opportunity to the upside. Ethereum, get through this little bit of a level, but there could be some breakout opportunities there. And then its next battle is going to be here at this next level up here at 4,000. So we'll see how that goes. Neo, also nice uptrend coming into some previous support resistance levels, but not necessarily as strong, but certainly creeping its way to the upside. Cardano, nice little range here. Want to see it break out that range, and you can see that bit of a potential swing low here. Not really happy with this. This is not a sign of strength. Okay, it's a bit overextended here. That's not really a sign of strength. That indicates there's a possibility the market could go either way this coming week. Ripple, again, similar to Neo, not that strong. It's got to get past this level and break up and then head up towards these. So it's interesting. The let's call them the leaders, Bitcoin, Ethereum, are still looking more bullish. Some of the others are not looking as strong at this point in time. Dogecoin, which I only do for fun, pullback, consolidated, got a strong level of support here. I want to see a monthly candle close near the highs to support, to confirm that the grip that the market is holding and that it's going to continue to go a little bit higher. So I need to see a break above these highs. Any drops below the lows, especially on the weaker ones, could obviously see them heading lower. So interesting enough, because there's a time when sometimes when all the cryptos are sort of coordinated or correlated. At this point in time, I'm not really seeing that. I'm seeing the originals, the grandfather kind of ones, all looking quite strong, and some of the newer ones, the more recent ones, not really looking as strong at this point in time. Doesn't mean that they're definitely going to fall, just means that they're scrambling, they're struggling a little bit. There we go. So, ladies and gents, I want to wish you a wonderful week in every single way. Hope you find some good trading opportunities on those currency pairs and avoid the markets that are not showing any potential. Maybe watch them from the side. If all of a sudden they start producing a trend, that's good. But I'd be surprised if there's a trend that's formed within the last week on some of those, because they need 2 or 3 weeks of movement to give me a trend. And that's it. If you enjoyed this, please give me a subscribe and a like and a thumbs up, please, so that I can kind of push my content up the algorithm. I know that it's annoying that everybody does it, but it is the only way for us to kind of get more exposure, and I would love to have that. And if you have any questions, put them into the comment section. Most of you know I respond to those. And thank you very much. Have a great week. Chat to you next week.